Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and we're going to continue talking about Quest from the Infinite Staircase, the brand new D&D Canon hardback. And it is a sweet world. It is a pretty sweet world. We get these new Canon hardbacks, and they're so cool. And now we're looking at Chapter 7 in Quest from the Infinite Staircase, and we're looking at Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. This is This is an adventure by Gary Gygax. It is beautifully restored, beautifully brought forward into the now. And this came out. Gary wrote this in 1980. It was right before he left for Hollywood. It's probably one of the last things he was able to really work on with full focus, right? Like, I think once he went to Hollywood, and we got the 1983 Saturday morning cartoon based on work he did right after he finished Expedition to Barrier Peaks. And I think, and today what I want to talk about is Aphelion, the villain in the new Expedition to Barrier Peaks. And before we get into Aphelion, I did want to say it's very clear that Hasbro has fully made peace with the Gygax family. All right, so first of all, one thing I think is really fascinating is the Gygax family has swiftly become kind of just Luke Gygax. I don't hear from anyone else, right? I never hear anyone talk about the Gygax family if they're not talking. Well, we all talk about Gary Gygax from the history of his from his history, and much more importantly, his current legacy, right? But Ed, his son Ed, he's off the grid, man. He got into some nonsense with new TSR, and nothing good is said about him today, and I think he's just kind of off the grid, right? Like, Luke Gygax is still around, but I think Hasbro has fully made peace with the Gygax estate, right? And they talk about Gary Gygax very openly now. So let's talk about Aphelion. So Aphelion is this fantastic. So I think actually when Gygax wrote Aphelion, or its counterpart, it was an evil computer. Today, it is an artificial intelligence, right? And it is presented as evil in Expedition to Barrier Peak, in the Quest from the Infinite Staircase Expedition to Barrier Peaks. Okay, so Aphelion is the artificial intelligence that controls the starship that is in the Barrier Peaks, this mountain range, right? Now, what's really fascinating is what I thought was really exceptionally cool and extremely well done in Quest from the Infinite Staircase, especially in the Barrier Peaks module adventure, right? There's six I think there's 6 adventures in there, right? Classic adventures that are represented, right? Is Aphelion is he's an artificial intelligence. He is evil. He's presented fully as evil, but he also is and as a villain, what is he and how does he function, right? So first of all, he can't be stabbed. He can't just be killed, right? He is an artificial intelligence, and he is throughout the entire spaceship that is in the Barrier Peaks. And you could destroy a computer. If he talks to you through a robot, you could destroy that robot. You didn't do anything to Aphelion. He could just switch over, and he could talk to you through a computer console that's in the that's in there. You could stab the computer console. Didn't do anything to Aphelion, right? He could just he can use one of the cameras that's around and put forward himself as a hologram, right? And you could use a wind elemental to disperse the hologram. It didn't do anything to Aphelion. So Aphelion is like very removed, right? And all your blades and all your arrows, they're not going to do anything to him, right? Which is really interesting. The other thing I really liked about Aphelion is how does he manifest his power? He controls every robot in the starship. By the way, the starship is not named, which I thought was very interesting. So that's why I keep saying the starship, right? So he controls every robot, combat and worker. There are two types of robots in the ship, in the starship, combat and worker. There's a lot of them, and they could do a lot, right? The other thing, there are also androids in the ship, but the androids are independent. They are not controlled by Aphelion, which I thought was really interesting. He controls all the lighting, right? So he decides if your path is lit and you're safe, or if your path is completely dark and your danger and your risk go up. He controls the drop tubes, right? He controls up and down. So he can like open up a drop tube for you and effortlessly take you to the highest floor on the ship or the lowest floor in seconds. Or he could shut off all the lights in the drop tubes and then use the drop tubes as hammers to destroy you, right? Like, and so he uses the drop tubes. He controls, he could see and hear every single thing in virtually every single space in the spaceship. So he has knowledge of your plans. Like, literally, if you're planning, he hears your plans, right? In addition to that, he does control all, and so what else does he control? Oh, access, right? So one of the things I thought was extremely well done was this key card access throughout the entire starship. Very interesting so the characters can get these key cards, but Aphelion doesn't have to worry about key cards. He can open up every door, right? He can help any of the player characters, kind of the Dragon Masters, sweep through anywhere they want to in the starship, or he can block every door. He can close every door, right? So the other thing is he can use visual projectors throughout the ship to present images that look like illusions. So Aphelion is incredibly powerful, and essentially all this is lair actions, right? So I love that Dungeons & Dragons has defined these things where they're saying, okay, a dragon is super dangerous. You go against a dragon in its lair, it's 3 times more dangerous. The environment itself becomes your enemy, right? And that's Aphelion. Aphelion is like a dragon in his lair, right? But Aphelion is trapped in this space. He cannot currently go outside of this space, right? Which is really, really fascinating. So I really loved Aphelion as he is presented in the Dungeons & Dragons adventure, from quests from the Hidden Staircase, quest from the Infinite Staircase, expedition to Barrier Peaks. It is beautifully wonderful to be reading Expedition to Barrier Peaks. It's really cool to just see this 1980s module brought forward, fully presented in a perfect modern setting, right? And it really did need updating. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion on Gary Gygax's, one of Gary Gygax's greatest modules. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion on Quest from the Infinite Staircase, Expedition to Barrier Peaks, Artificial Intelligence, or anything else you'd like to list. Please consider liking, subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.